ask him. Yes, it is. Okay, thank you. And I will share my screen. All right, everybody seeing my screen?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
I've got, oh, is anybody else confused now about the fact that Lightroom changed all of this? I actually went in and found exactly what I needed to pretty quickly, but I need to get into it because there's tons of new stuff in here. Really good things from what I understand. And
No idea.
the neural filters are pretty cool. For example, if let's say we had this picture here and I had some background that was sharp and I wanted the background to be blurry and progressively blurry, there's a thing that you can now execute and say, I want that blurry and let me adjust how much so. And voila, you just shot her with, F2 instead of F9. So I'm looking forward to playing with that. It's using kind of the same technology they have now in Photoshop, where you can add clouds in the background by just saying add clouds, and that's all it takes. So, all right. Now, the reason we're doing this is so you guys can interrupt me with questions. All right. And all I'm going to do is really kind of edit, but I'll yammer a little bit while I'm going along here. So let's see. Does anybody want to see how to do reflections in post-production? Would that interest anyone? Like having that
Yes, please.
with a reflection? Okay. It's really pretty simple to do. Let me bring this over into Photoshop. By the way, this picture is what happens when you run out of things to do. You can always tell when you run out of things to do when somebody in the shoot says, here, put this on your head. Okay. So we're going to straighten her up a little bit. The important part about doing post reflections is making sure that when you shoot it, you have a straight line to work with. Okay, if I shot her up high and one foot was further out and one was further back, it would be impossible to do a reflection. So when you shoot it, you have to make sure there's a line. I mean, I could even tilt this a little bit more just to make sure that her feet are lined up. Okay, so that's kind of an important thing. So I'm going to say okay to that. Now what we've got, I'm going to clean up the floor just a little bit with the I don't remember what that's called. It's a repair thing. There's content
Brush.
Content aware.
Content aware. Yes. Healing brush. That's it. Healing brush. So, I mean, I'm not going to finish this off, but I'm going to do that. And I'm doing that on purpose because I want this to be clean. All right. Now we've got this problem here because I moved her up so I could have more reflection. And now we've got some white area here. This is how I make my studio and everything else a lot bigger. Okay, now I've got this gray area right here. Okay, I'm going to select that. And then I'm going to do a pre-transform on it. And I'm going to hold the shift key down and drag this down. So what I did is I took that and I stretched it all the way down, and it kept me from having to clean everything up and all that. I would normally want to clean that floor part first because I just stretched any kind of little dirt and crap that was down there, but I'm going to brush that all out anyway. And I'll do that right now, actually. I'll go in here with the mixer brush, pick the color of the floor because you see her reflection sort of in there already. I want that to go away. So I'm going to just make the brush a little longer and go like this. Now, if we look close at the floor, all the little pieces of hair and everything else is gone. just fine. And I would do the same kind of thing around here just to detail it, but that's not what we're here to do right now. And every time I do anything, I save it just because if you don't, then your chances are really good it'll crash. If you do, it'll never crash. I don't know why I'm even saying any of that, because that's just jinxing it. Okay, so now I've got the selection box. I'm going to just select everything all the way down to her feet here. And I'm going to do a Control C, which copies it, a Control V, which pastes it, and a Control T. And that puts another layer in. See, so I've got the top layer here is just the thing that I just copied out. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to do a free transform on it. No, that's not a free transform. That's my name. I've got to push the right button, Dave. I'm going to do a free transform on that. And I'm going to come up here to edit and flip that vertically. And then move it down here. Sort of line it up with her feet. Now you can see why it's important to be lined up. I mean, very important. So we're going to say okay to that. And while we're still on that, that reflection thing there, the reflection part, I'm going to go up to the filters and go to Gaussian blur. I haven't figured out why they don't put that as a main filter thing, because everybody uses that. And now I can make it so the floor is reflective, but not too reflective. And also change the opacity of that. So it's not quite as bright, because it's not supposed to be. It's a reflection. So there you go. Now, sometimes if these don't line up, you really need to put a layer in, or a layer mask in, and zoom in on it. And then use a black paintbrush to make sure that these toes, for instance, didn't get covered by the layer that we put in next to her. I probably should have let it go over her toes just to show you what I meant. But sometimes if this other layer here is too high, it would copy over these, and you don't want those. You want those to be sharp. The only thing you want left is the reflection. So does that all make sense? It's actually really simple to do. And the thing to keep in mind is that there's a lot of things wrong with this reflection. I mean, a lot of things, especially the fact that we've got this big shadow here. It wouldn't necessarily look like this in a reflection, but people's heads aren't going to see that, unless somebody's looking for a problem. It's like, nah, that looks fine. That's a reflection. So does that make sense? Any questions? All right, cool.
Nope.
So that's how to do reflections. Again, it's really important that you have a line. So if you're shooting somebody and they're laying on the floor, you have to shoot them on the floor. You have to get on the floor. Put your camera down as low as you can, so there's a line that you can work with. All right, we'll work with this one. Okay, I start with Lightroom doing a lot of things. All of these are still straight up and down, so you can see I haven't adjusted it all. But you see how her hair, now I don't know a lot of times this will make a liar out of me, but her hair is pretty much just a kind of a blob. I can bring the shadows up. You can see her hair coming back, which is kind of cool. I actually run the shadows up on most of my stuff. I shoot dark, so it's kind of important for me to do that. Run the shadows up. If it makes things, if I have to, I can increase the exposure and then bring down the highlights. Now I have the kind of exposure that I want. And I don't know that I could have gotten that exposure naturally or unnaturally with a flash, but that's what I want right there. So I'll do those kinds of things right in here to get ready to do the work. And then when I finish, you'll see me come back, and I'll probably use the dehaze a little bit and maybe a little bit of shadows again. So I use Lightroom, go to Photoshop, then go back to Lightroom again. So I'm going to now take this and edit it in Photoshop. There we go. With all of my stuff up above here, I'm going to cheat. Remember how I did the floor thing? I'm going to take this and I'm going to do a free transform, hold the shift key down and slide this up. And now I have a nice clean replacement of all the junk that was up there. I could technically do the same thing here with to get this little piece of floor out of here. But I'll show you another thing that I do occasionally, and no one ever complains, and most people don't even notice it. I don't know that I mentioned it very often in the class, but I like to play with people's heads. If I can convince them of something without them knowing it, sometimes I'll do it just because I want it, because it's fun. For example, I'm going to select this whole thing. I'm going to do free transform again. I'm going to hold the shift key down again, and I'm just going to pull this down a little bit. See, it's stretching her. It's not proportional. That's what the shift key does, is it makes it this, so it's not proportional. You're actually stretching her. And she'll never know the difference. Everything's fine. We didn't stretch her enough to be a big deal. So say okay to that. I've now fixed everything above here and everything below here without doing any kind of fixes with brushes or any of that kind of stuff. So that's kind of awesome. Now there's some things on her I might want to change around a little bit with the liquefy. So when I do that, I always, unlock the layer and make a duplicate. So I've got two layers that are exactly the same. I'll mess around with the top layer. Then if there's anything I need to bring back, I have a copy of it below. So that's the reason for that. So I'm going to take the top layer and I'm going to do liquefy. And let's see, there's only a couple things that I want to do here. I want to make her hair come out more. So I will pull this out and let me explain liquefy and how I use it. It's different than, well, it's not different. It's just, there's tools along here for liquefy. There's a whole line of them. I only use the top corner, period. And I get this right here, which lets me do a lot of things. But I do it all from the edge. Okay. For example, I wouldn't make her boobs bigger, but I will here just for an example. I won't do it by touching the center and pulling out. That'll look weird. I will touch it right here and pull it out with the edge. Okay, does that make sense? If I did it right here, it's gonna grab it in the middle and move it around. And when you do here, you can like nudge things in or out, which is pretty awesome. I'm gonna hit the restore all button here because, well, I just screwed everything up. Okay, so from out here, I'm pulling the hair by putting my pen out in the middle and not on the hair. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to move her bottom in just a little bit. And then round it off the way I want. Should probably zoom in a little bit better. There. You can do the same thing with the legs here. Again, these are all things that if people don't look at the original picture, they're never going to know you did any of this stuff, which is fine by me. When somebody says, oh, well, that's not reality, I said, well, I don't shoot reality. If they want that, they can use their cell phone. So anyway, all right, we're looking good. So I'm going to say, okay. Now, one of the things I didn't mention while I was doing that, you know how I moved her bottom in a little bit, so there wasn't, I mean, she was sliding down, so there was a little more here than I wanted. If you move it this way, what you're going to do is it slides a little bit of the chair along. If you go along this line here, then you don't have things that get in the way. I mean, things don't change. Like the seat didn't change its shape, but her bottom did, because I brought it along that line instead of moving up or down or anything, which would have made the seat a different, do something different. So there we go. Got what we want. Now I have the two layers here, and I'll show you why I did the two layers. We'll zoom in. I'll turn on and off the top layer and look at it closely to see what I screwed up. Okay, look right here at the chair. I didn't screw it up, but it looks all right too. There's nothing wrong with it. But you can see that, you know, I don't have to actually go in and fix it because I didn't move it that much. And her hair, of course, is moving. Now, if her hair had been closer to her face, I'll probably, the next one I do, I'll be pulling her away from her face. You have to be really careful because you might grab her ear and pull it out where it wouldn't be, or make her nose longer than it's supposed to be. So, so you have to like do this and make sure everything turned out like you wanted. And if it didn't, then you can turn around and, for instance, I could put a mask layer in here and use a black brush. And if I didn't like her butt the way I've changed it, I can put it back the way it was by painting it back in again. Have all of you used mask layers before? Or masking? And don't feel embarrassed. I went a year not having a clue how masking worked. And I didn't even know when I went to Photoshop. I went to Photoshop World and they did it 100 times. So I got pretty good at it. At Joy, I figured you did, because I've, you know, your work's pretty evident. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this because I really didn't want her bottom to be the way it was. But to do the masks, I have two layers here. If you take the top one and you hit this little, I look at it as a block of wood with a hole in it. Okay, it's a mask layer. Now, if you have that here, you can paint with black or white. And if you paint with black, it drills a hole to the next layer. So her bottom, on the bottom one, looked like this. So if I clicked there and painted on the picture with black, it drilled a hole to the bottom one. So it brought that back up the way it was. So if her face was weird because you pulled hair out and her face was weird, you could do this, paint her face with black, and with a layer, it wouldn't actually paint her face, of course, but it would then turn around and make the face the way it was in the lower layer. If you paint with white, it puts it back. So like if I painted this like that, you can see there's a little black dot there. That's my painting here. If I turn around and painted that with white, it fills it back in again the way I changed it and puts it back the way it is in the top one. So I look at the black as drilling a hole into the bottom one, and white is like spackling over the hole and filling it back in again. So there you go. All right, I'm going to flatten this. This is something that drives a lot of people crazy. They go, no, I want to have like 30 layers so I can go back and change things. And I'm more of a, oh, so far so good, flatten it and keep going. And again, I'm going to save it because I might do something that makes it crash. Now, just for kicks on this one, I'm going to use the one and only filter I ever use, and that's Imaginomics Portraiture, which, by the way, is on sale for 30% off. I'm not an ad. I just got the email. I always paid full price. Okay, so with that one filter, I'm going to show you what I can do. See, only one filter here. It comes up and says, okay, here's the filter. And what it does is it cleans up the skin for you. For instance, okay, see her leg, and you can see, you know, some little dots, and it's just not even. You know, skin is just not even. It's just never is. Now that's what the filter does to it. So you can see the difference between the two. So it does an awful lot of cleanup for me, which I kind of love. It's a lot less work. Same with the face. Now, I don't like the fact that it does it to the eyes. It does it to the lips. It depends on the color of the lips. It's looking for things that are skin color, any kind of brown. It seems to change. Like the chair. If you notice the chair here, if I go on and off, you can see the chair change too. That's because the chair is brown. But her bra didn't. It's a little softer, but it didn't. It doesn't really need a lot of work. If I had something in here that was red, it wouldn't either. But see, it's softened her hair too. If I go up and down on this, you see the difference. Now there's a checkbox in here that says new layer. So it's going to give me another layer. So I've got the original and this softer one. And there's all kinds of controls here, which I have never messed with, believe it or not. There's a normal, medium, and strong. Those came from the factory that way. That's just different settings of these. And it will change how strong this is. Sometimes a normal just barely changes it on the skin. And if you've got somebody who has unbelievably good skin, you can get away with that if you have to use it at all. Medium is typically what I use if I'm working with somebody that's possibly older, or they have a lot of little inconsistencies in the skin. I might do strong, and that'll fix them up pretty well. The thing is, I'll then turn around, mask out, just like I did earlier with masking. I'll mask out the things that I don't want to be smoother. So I'm going to say okay to this, and it's going to give me two copies. The top copy is the smooth, nice one, and the bottom copy is the original. So I can, again, do the masking layer, the little block of wood with a hole in it, and I can zoom in on her. I'm going to let the chair stay soft. I don't care about the texture on the chair, but I do on her lips. So I'm going to paint with black over her lips and her eyes. And if she had jewelry on, I would do that because I want the jewelry to be nice and crisp. And why not? I'll paint over her clothes here too. All right. Now I'm not going to do it over the nylons. I love the smoothness of the nylons on this. So that works out. Now she does have, she was obviously wearing jeans or a garter or something, or a corset or something before, because there's these lines here. I use frequency separation to get rid of those. I'm going to flatten this because it's the way I want it. And I'm going to run a frequency separation action that I have. And you all are welcome to these. They're on the training page, on the front page near the bottom. You can download them. And to add them to your Photoshop, just, believe it or not, drag the file right into your Photoshop icon and it will install them for you. It doesn't get much easier than that. Okay, so I'm going to run that, and it's going to give me, it's going to ask me, is this blur okay? And 14 pixels is always fine. Say okay. Now I have two layers. This one layer here is, I even tell you what tool to use, clone stamp. And that's for getting rid of details or editing details. This one, you use the mixer brush, and that's for smoothing out colors. And I'll show you both of them. It automatically chooses the details, and it automatically chooses the clone stamp up there. So we're all ready to go there. So I'm going to.
So Dave, a question.
Sure.
You You made a comment on the weekend that, or maybe it was on one of the training videos that I saw, that you had an overlay and 50% gray. Can you help me with that piece?
Yes, that's in dodge and burn, and we'll do that next.
Oh, okay.
And that's covered there, because this isn't really 50% gray. It's, if I turned everything off and we looked here, all we would see is the actual detail, but everything would be gray because there's no color in this layer. So we're editing a layer. Let's see, I don't think I can turn off enough things to show. It would be almost impossible to edit it without seeing the other layers too, but we are only editing the detail.
Okay.
Which means if I think I hold the Option key down on this. If I hold the Option key down, I can select, I want this texture here and I want it to be here. So I paint over it and you can see I can make things go away. Like down here, I can get rid of anything I want to on the skin by basically using other pieces of skin. But if you're taking from a darker area to a lighter area, it will only do the detail. It won't do the color, which is what it would normally do with the clone stamp if you didn't do it with the frequency separation. So I can come in here and I can pretty much paint out all the flaws in her skin here from the corset, you know, the lines, pretty easily. I do pick areas that are like in really dark areas here, there's not as much detail in it. So I would want to pick that in order to smooth this out. Because why would you want detail in there if the rest of it didn't have any? So that's a little bit better. If I'm lazy, sometimes I'll cheat a little. In here to make this smoothed out, I would actually use the mixer brush. I'll show you. I'll just flatten this. I'm going to go to the mixer brush, which is a magical brush, by the way. I use the mixer brush just about every shoot. Now I'm going to pick a color, and I'm going to generally pick some color in here. So now I've got a mixer brush, a really big one, evidently. Come on. That's better. Okay. With the mixer brush, I can come in here and just with a few little swipes, I can make all of this look okay. Now, the interesting thing about the mixer brush is, see, if you look, come back here, it looks fine. If you look close, I could probably use a little bit better blending in here. There we go. That's better. If you look close, it's real smooth. The thing is, the human eye sees detail in other areas. It assumes there's detail there. So you can cheat and you can smooth out some areas, and people will never know the difference. Like if I wanted to say, well, okay, there's a little bit of stubble here. Let's shave her a little bit. Done, gone. It's pretty easy to do that, and nobody's going to pay any attention to that. The client's the only one that really cares, and you. And anybody else says, oh yeah, I zoomed in. I says, well, don't. that's not your job. Okay, so we've got our skin set up pretty much. Oh, I was going to do the other part of the frequency separation. Let's go back to that. It's funny. I knew if I didn't go to the mixer brush thing, I'd forget. And then I turned around and forgot this part. Okay, so now I'm going to select colors and go to the mixer brush. And let's see, what would I like to smooth out? I'm going to make this a little more even right in here. So I'm going to pick a general skin color in there. And I can go back and forth like this. And now there's not as many little divots and things. I don't know if, there we go. You can see a little bit of difference between the two. So kind of made it so she's a little more, consistent in there. You can do the same thing like up here. You pick a little lighter color. Remember, this is all about color. It has nothing to do with detail. So when I'm using the mixer brush here and smoothing things out, if we zoom in on there, it's got the same amount of detail as it had before. But you can take any kind of little bumps and irregularities off of someone. Now, if I don't like the last thing I did there, there we go. We can go back to the details and let's look at her face really close here.
Hey, Dave,
Yeah.
on your mixer brush, do you typically use those settings up at the top?
Mhm.
You don't typically change those, is that right?
Right. And I'm pretty sure these are the way they came from the default, because I've never changed these with the mixer brush. Just seems to work just fine.
Okay.
And with the mixer brush, something that if somebody's not used to using that, well, I'll show you when I'm done doing this. There's a technique to use the mixer brush. And when you get really good at it, you can almost do a lot of your dodge and burn with the mixer brush. It's that good. I'm going to go back to details on the frequency separation for just a little bit, go back to the clone stamp and show you how we can take out lines in the forehead, for instance, which, by the way, changes her expression completely. She looks far more relaxed when you take these off. I mean, you might want them. It depends entirely on what look you're shooting for. But I'm just selecting areas of texture and moving them in to the other areas. So we made all of her lines disappear. I can come down here and take any other things off of a face that I want. I can select in here and pretty much get rid of the that smile line a little bit. Okay, and this is where I would then turn around and use the, I'm going to flatten everything. And I'm going to just clean this up a little bit by smoothing it out with the brush. Again, when there's detail in other places, they won't notice that you smoothed out some areas. All right. Now let me show you with the mixer brush what I was talking about. I'm going to do the mixer brush and I'm going to really screw up her arm because it's just kind of important. Well, let me find a different area. Might be better. Now I'll do it in the legs here. See, with the mixer brush, I can go up and down like this and get away with it. What it's doing is mixing everything that I'm touching as I go along here. Okay, if I go like this, bad idea. Okay, so always go with the flow. Like if I'm, well, I'll show you in dodge and burn how you go with the flow here. But you know, even moving along here, I would always go this way. If I get too close to these, it's going to blend them in and blur them. So you got to be really careful when you're using that. And I forgot to mention too, when I used the Imaginomic portraiture, and I said, well, I want to mask out the eyes and the lips because I want those to not be smoothed out at all. If she had tattoos, I would want to do it over those too, because they don't like you to blur their tattoos. Those you'd have to go over them and make sure that they're just as bright as they were before. So, all right. Any questions so far? I'm going to do dodge and burn next.
I have a quick question. When you first started, you did the free transform and you stretched her.
Mm-hmm.
Would you ever do that to just, because you stretched her as a whole, would you ever do that to just their legs if they're standing from a perspective, if you're shooting below,
Mm-hmm.
and to elongate their legs? Would you ever like
Yeah.
do just torso and legs?
Yes. Yeah, I have before. And yeah, you have to just be really careful at the one spot where you actually had the line. You make sure if you lengthen it, it's a good chance you won't have a line that's noticeable. But let's say she had, a curve, her legs are like this, and she had a big curve of the panties here. You'd want to be either above that curve or below that curve, because if you went across the curve, all of a sudden it's going to do that and then come down and then go like that. It'll look weird. So you just have to pick where you want to cut the line at, and it should be fine. It should work out good. I don't know if I mentioned this much in the lighting class, but certainly in the editing, I always talk about the fact that just remember the people don't know what the original looked like. And you might sit back and look at it and go, oh my God, that is so different than the original. That's okay. If they're never going to see the original, then they don't know it's different. They're just going to hopefully love it the way it is. Okay, so I'm going to do dodge and burn here. And that again is it's an action. It's a simple action though. I'm going to run that action and it's going to give me 2 layers. And this is the 50% gray. Both of these are just 50% gray layers, nothing on them at all. And they're set to overlay. What that does is it's like putting a piece of plastic over the image that you can draw on. Ooh, my internet connection is unstable. You guys still hearing me all right? I know I'm unstable.
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm having a little Bailey's Irish cream here too, so hopefully I won't slur my words. Okay, so dodge and burn is my absolute favorite thing to do to any picture. I'm doing dodge first, which puts light. I basically want to put light wherever there's already light, most definitely. But I may want to put light in places where there wasn't much, like right here on her bra, there wasn't much. So I'm going to lighten these up because I just kind of like the detail in there. And I'll lighten this area here. Remember that one picture that we couldn't duplicate? That's because I lit it up different than what you could even possibly do. I mean, I sent you guys all copies of it.
What tool are you using? Can you hear me?
Yes. I'm using, there's dodge and burn tools right here. There's dodge, burn, and believe it or not, the sponge tool actually takes away color. So if you've got something that's got too much color, you can actually get rid of it with this. But dodge and burn is what we're going to use now. When I ran the action, it not only set up the dodge and burn layers for me, but it set it automatically to dodge and automatically set the tool to the dodge tool. So as soon as I ran that, I was ready to start painting because it's going to do that for us.
So Dave, question on your tablet and your pen. When you're using your pen, do you set your brush to pressure sensitivity too? So lighter touch is less, or how do you approach that?
Absolutely. They all come default that way. And you kind of, I can't even imagine trying to do editing without a tablet. And yes, this is the only time I really feel like I'm an artist because I'm actually painting on, I'm painting on the thing with a pen. And yes, it's pressure sensitive and it doesn't change the size. It changes how bright or dark it's going to paint something. I don't need it to do size. I can do that by changing the control here. And I should probably show you all something that I use. There's this thing here. I use the XP pen thing, but there's a lot of companies that have a lot of different things out. This is only like $40 and it has 9 buttons on it, as you can see, and a wheel. And then there's a button in the middle of the wheel, right underneath that little green light. I can push that button, and as I push the button, I'll push it right here. There we go. If you'll see on the picture, it's toggling between zoom and brush size every time I do that. Okay, so if I go to zoom, and then, oh, I stopped on brush size. If I go to zoom and do this, it's zooming in and out for me. If I push it again, it's going to change my brush size. And this is always in my left hand while I'm editing over here. So I can very quickly, zoom in on something and then change the brush size. And if you really wanted to get fancy, I could put a third one in there that would toggle to where it would rotate it. So I could, I'm easier doing this, so rotate it around it so it's easier to get to. I never rotate, so I don't do that, but you could, because you can completely program all of these buttons to what you want. Every one of these buttons is assigned something, and I was shocked beyond belief that within about 3 days, I remembered precisely what every button did. I push one button to do the dodge and burn, one button to do the frequency separation, another button to do, you can program it to do all the different things that you want. You see here that dodge and burn is F11. That's a action. Actions, if you're going to assign buttons to it, you have to go in and tell it. That's F11. That's when you can then turn around and tell one of these buttons to be F11. So you push that button and ta-da, your dodge and burn happens. So this is really cool. And by the way, you don't have to have an XP system in order for this to work. You just put the driver in for this also. And if you're using a Wacom, you can, and it'll work. It should work just fine. I've never.
Who makes that again?
XP Pen. The letters XP and then Pen, PEN. And this is called an AC19. By the way, this tablet is on sale for under $700, I think, too. Again, I paid for my two. I don't get anything from them. I asked them if they wanted to let me give discounts and stuff, and they just wanted all kinds of information from me. I don't blame them, but I'm not going to go to that much work. But it is the holiday, so this is the time to be getting anything that you need. So yeah,
it's like that. I just checked. It's about 30% off on that too. Now you mentioned it.
Is it? All right. Well, it's only it's about $40 anyway, so it's not too bad. I mean, what's the price show? Are you looking at it?
Yeah, $32.99.
Of course. Well, you're welcome that I bought two of them for $40. Because whenever that happens, they drop the price. It's just how it works. Okay, so back to the dodge and burn. I don't just dodge and burn the people. I'll dodge and burn the things around them if I feel that it's going to do what I want it to do. Emphasize them somehow. Now, so far, I've just been dodging. I don't use burn as much because, like I said, I shoot dark. So an awful lot of stuff is already dark in the first place. But I'm now going to go to the other layer. It really doesn't matter which layer. I could do it all in one. But I'm going to go to the burn layer. I set to the burn tool, and I can come in here now and darken along her leg here or along here if I want. A lot of times where there's skin touching skin, crossing skin, or skin touching something else, I'll actually burn that area. It puts a shadow in there and it makes it pop. It gives you more of a 3D look. Okay, see the difference there? I'm turning it on and off. I do that a lot. I wouldn't do it right here, but hairlines, you can go, if you've got a face, you can go all around the hairline. It really makes the face stand out, which is pretty cool. But like I said, I don't use burn all that much. It's really good for making abs stand out. I don't dare try it on me. It just won't work. I know it. Anyway, so there you go. Now here's the difference. There's without dodge and burn. Okay, I'm going to add a little burn, add a little dodge. And now the whole idea is this area here, if you look at it, I'll turn it on and off again. I changed the shape. I made it the way I want it. That's off. That's on. I put more light here, which emphasized her calf muscle. Yeah, all the way through. Now, I didn't really do any dodging on her face, and I should. So I'm going to go up there. By the way, the reason for the 2 is if I over dodge, I can change the opacity on that layer, and I can make it so there's less dodge or more dodge. That's why there's 2. And when you do it on these layers, it's not as hot. If you try and dodge and burn directly to an image, well, first of all, the only way to get out of that is to go back in your history if you screw up. So having another layer is really helpful there, but it's a lot hotter too. I don't know why, but it is. Okay, so I'm going to dodge her lips. But I'm certainly not going to do it with the burn tool. Okay, let's try this. Dodge tool. There we go. Make her lips brighter. Now, if her eye was closed and we could see the eyelid, I would put a bright line up and down the middle of her eyelid, because it makes her eye completely round. It really, really makes a difference, which is really cool. And if the hair, we can't see much of the hair here, but if the hair was standing where we could see some highlights, I would really add more highlights to it. Maybe not add more, but emphasize the ones that are already there. Because, well, these ladies go in and spend money to get that done. So nobody's ever said, hey, you got too much highlights in my hair. That doesn't happen. Okay, so here's her face before and after. So you see her, just look at her lips in particular. Makes a big difference. A lot of this is a little overdone, but it's also every little thing that you do adds to the whole picture. So each little thing is, you may make a change and go, it didn't do much. Doesn't have to do much. That and everything else you did changes it. Okay, I'm going to flatten this, and I'm going to show you how to clean a floor, which you may have to do with the pictures you got from my studio. I'm going to use the mixer brush, and I'm going to pick, I'm going to get rid of this line here. I'm just going to pick the color, general color there, and I'm going to brush against the line, against the grain, and it'll make the line go away. You have to be careful. If I touched her, it's going to blur her into it too, and we don't want that.
As a side note, I found that tool that you're using on eBay for $24.
Which tool?
Your little XP
Oh.
hand thing that you're using.
The XP thing? Okay, that's good to know.
Yes. And the 24 includes shipping.
Wow.
It's brand new
Wow,
on eBay.
that's awesome. Well, I know that they probably build the thing for $5, so they're not doing bad at 25. So let's see, I'm going to clean the floor a little more. I'm going to get rid of that line. I'll use okay. I'll remember the healing brush. There we go. Put the healing brush in here. By the way, if you're ever using the healing brush and doing something, especially if it's something big, and you do it all and you go, okay, that should get it. And then, it puts part of a foot in it or something weird. Just do it again. The software knows what it did. And if you do it again, it goes, well, the human wasn't happy with what I did last time, so I must do something different. And it will. A lot of times, most of the time, it'll turn around and do a better job of whatever it is that it was doing. All right. Not bad. Okay, it's a little weird right here. So I'm going to pick that general color, and using the mixer brush, there we go. Using the mixer brush, I'm just going to brush in here a little, and it's going to make that all go away, that splotchy-ish thing. Now I could come in here and with a lot of detail, I can brush back and forth. I would want to keep the shadows, so I would brush this way and not this way. So it really depends on if you're trying to make it go away or if you're trying to enhance it, on which direction you go. All right, I'm going to save this because it's pretty much done. The only other thing that I do, which you all wouldn't want to do, is I add my name to it again with actions because, well, I do it often enough. I don't want to do it. I don't want to keep repeating that over and over again. So I'm going to flatten that. Now I'm going to save it again. So I'm not only showing you guys, but you'll probably see this on, on Facebook. Okay. So now I don't know how many of you use Lightroom. Do all of you use Lightroom? Is there anybody here that does not use Lightroom? I mean, don't be embarrassed if you don't. That's fine. I use Lightroom because, well, all of this shot with Ellie, for instance, is in a folder, and everything I do with this shoot is in that folder. And when I export the picture, I've set it up so it exports it with the name of the folder in the name of the file. So you know me and some of my pictures, I'll export a butt. Okay, there's no way in hell I would know whose butt that is unless there was something somewhere that told me. So I make it that so every picture that I have tells me exactly when. It's got the model's name, it's got the month, the year, and any makeup artists or location or any other thing I want to know. And I make that a keyword on all the pictures that I have in Lightroom. And then I have it that so when I export a picture, it exports it with the keyword. And you'll see, well, let me fix this one up with a little more tweaking from Lightroom, and then I'll show you exactly how I would export it. I love the dehaze. Check out what dehaze does. It just they should call it the mood swing here, because it just changes it. Now, if you go too far, she turns orange. And if that happens, then you have to come up here and change the tint a little more blue. So if you see some of my pictures, see, it goes blue if you go that way. If you see some of my pictures with a little blue tint to it, that's because the model turned a little too orange. So there you go. Again, one of the reasons why I call myself an artist, because somebody can't say, that's not the right color, or that's the color I wanted it to be. So there you go. So yeah, dehaze is the biggest thing that I do in this part of it. And there we go. There's the finished one. Okay, so there's there wasn't a lot of change, but look at her here, and then look at the finished one. It definitely looks a little more polished between the two. There's no air conditioner on the wall. That's good. But look at her leg right here, especially right in that spot. I reshaped her leg. I gave her calf muscle a little more prominence there. And her bottom has changed. So that's that one. Oh, let's see.
Hey, Dave, would you be able to show, when you have a topless and you do the Gaussian blur across just the area you want to blur?
Oh, yeah. That's easy.
You don't have any in this set, but could you show how you do that?
Oh, I can. It doesn't have to be nude to do it. I'll just do it to this one here. Bring it into Photoshop. This is a forehead slapper as far as, oh, that's it. Okay, if I want to do if she was even, let's say I wanted to do this part, I could do that. That's a little much. I can do this and then just come up here to filter and do the Gaussian blur. And then I certainly have to run that blur up a ways. I don't want anything to show up. There we go. We can have a little of it show up. Now I'm going to show you a little trick too. Before I do that, if you want to get fancy about it, make a copy. So you've got 2 copies of the image. Okay, then on the top one, you go ahead and do this. And we'll do Gaussian blur. Say okay. All right. And then when you unclick here, you get that, which is fine. Now you can put this on social media. The thing that I found is especially if it's a square or there are some sharp lines involved, the algorithms that look at the pictures, they don't they see that as something in front of her and she is covered. They don't have to think about it. They immediately bypass it because there's nothing to see here. Move along. Now, if I want to do something that's at an angle like this, I can, I don't use the lasso. I use the next one down, the poly, whatever it is, lasso. Okay. It's really weird to work with because I'm going to click here and then drag and click, drag, click, drag, click, and then close it back off right there. Then I come up and change it to the lasso again. Otherwise it'll do weird stuff on me. So next time I touch it, it'll think I'm going to do this again. Then I can do the blur and Gaussian blur, and there it's blurred. Now I told you that I was going to show you a little trick. That's why we did the 2 layers here. Again, I'm going to do the mask, and I'm going to mask with white because I'm going to fill it back in again. Oh wait, I want to go black. Sorry. I want to go to the next layer below. Remember, the layer below looks like that. Okay, so I'm going to go in here. I'm going to paint with white. No, I'm going to paint with black because I'm going to drill a hole to the bottom one. So I can like bring these to the curves of her legs. Or I can make it this so it's to the edge of her bra. Because what I'm doing is I'm painting back in the stuff from below back into the top one. I've had it before where the model's, she's topless and her arms are down, and I'll run the line across and I'll make it so her arm looks like it's laying on top of the line, which is kind of cool. It's like, well, is she holding that in place? So does that answer your question, Joy?
Yes, perfect. Thank you. I wasn't sure how you did the angle, but you said you use
Okay.
the poly.
Yeah, the next one down. This one right here.
Oh, polygonal. Okay.
Yeah, there
Thank
you
you.
go. I think if you just press L, keep pressing L, it keeps changing. If I press, well, it's not doing it, so I don't know what they're talking about. Anyway, that's how I would do that. It's very, very, very short and simple, but the most important part is the search engine, the algorithms look at that, and it could be a 2x4 there. They don't care. They see the straight lines and go, okay, there's nothing to see here. No reason to send them to jail. So there you go. All right. Okay, you want to see this one or this one? Which one would you guys like to see? I can do both. God, you guys are noisy.
I think the headshot one there would be a good one. It's got a lot of complexity to it.
Okay, we'll do this one. Now it's like I said, I shoot dark. So I'm going to bring up the shadows. You notice her hair comes up. If everything is okay, but her hair isn't there, I can also come up here to a brush and I can brush her hair and tell it to bring the shadows out. So it doesn't have to be everything, but generally it only brings out the things I want to see anyway. So I'm going to crank that over. I'm going to make it a little bit brighter and bring the highlights down a little. That flattens her up a lot, by the way. So dodge and burn is kind of important because it brings down a lot of the lights and brings up a lot of the darks. So it requires work. Okay, so there she is. I'll take that into Photoshop. All right. I'm going to actually do this one without using the filter. So y'all don't think you have to go out and buy that filter. And that, by the way, is why I don't use a lot of filters. If I'm supposed to teach people how to do things, I don't want to say, no, go buy this topaz, this and do that. Okay, I'm going to work on our face first, and we're going to do the frequency separation. That's where we can clean up things. Okay, so it's automatically put me in the details. It's automatically picked the clone brush, or clone tool, I should say. And see, I have one of the buttons on my AC19. I just reach over and push that, and it has been programmed to be my option key. So I don't have to reach down to the keyboard to do it. Chins are the weirdest part of a human body. It's almost like, I don't know what I'm going to do here. It should be fancier than that somehow, but it's not. And I'm going to take this black part out. Well, it's not going to do the black so much because I'm not doing color. I'm doing texture, but I can clean that up in a little bit with the color side. And since you all have pictures of Ellie, she's got those worry lines across her forehead in almost all the pictures, even when she's not worried about anything. I'm gonna leave some spots here. Anything that I believe is just pretty normal. The tricky part is when you get a client that has freckles, you absolutely want the freckles unless they hate their freckles. And it's a good chance they hate their freckles because people who have them hate them. The people who don't have them wish they had them.
So Dave, you mentioned the freckles. Have you seen a big controversy about school photos where they've been eliminating kids' freckles and hearing aids and things like that, and parents have really been pissed?
Oh, yeah. I don't know that I would go to that much trouble to start with, because I don't get paid that much, but they might actually have software that's doing that for them. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they did. But yeah, I had a girl once that she had these little dots all over her body. I mean, they were everywhere except her face. She didn't have any on her face. Probably they may have been covered with makeup. And this is early on. I asked her, I said, do you want it both ways? And she said, I don't care. So I did one without dots and one with the dots. And, she never actually commented on it. But yeah, I remember going to a seminar once, and one of the guys there said, yeah, I had somebody, I edited them, and he gave them the pictures, and they said, why did you edit out my third nipple? I'm going, oh, man, I don't know if I would have noticed that that's what it was, but it's like, okay. So some people really love their differences, and some people don't. So it's best to ask, but I hadn't heard of that, man. That's crazy. I don't think a 7-year-old really cares that much. So I don't know. And the parents would want their kids to look like their kids, even when they're 25 later. Okay, so I'm going to use the color mixer thing now. I'm using the mixer brush. I want to pick some color in the area that I want to brush. It doesn't have to be exact, just something close. And I'm going to brush back and forth. Notice that dot just went away. Let me do it again. I took the detail out of the thing, but it's still dark because it was dark. And the detail, the cloning brush thing, doesn't change the color, just changes the detail. So I took the detail out, and now I'm going to just gently brush over it and it's gone. Okay, and I can come over here and brush over this, and it looks a little smoother. Here we've got a dark area and a light area. So I'm going to just kind of brush back and forth a few times, and now they're even. It's the one time the mixer brush doesn't actually take away any of the detail, which is exactly what you want. And we can come up here on her face. Let's get closer to the coloration we want. And I can go back and forth here a little and smooth that out. Okay, see the difference there? There's that and that. Maybe I can do a little bit of light over here. Here's the key. I can push light from there to there with the mixer brush, or I can pull dark from here to here. If I go from here and swoop across, it's lightening that up. See, it lightened it up right there. Or I can pull from dark and come, well, I guess it's set to a lot lighter, so that's why. But usually you can pull from the dark and come up here, and it'll actually pull the dark up. As I said earlier, you can do a little bit of dodge and burn just from using the mixer brush. So, okay, so I still have the mixer brush, still on that. I'm gonna come down here and do the cheeks a little bit. Take the shadow away from her eyelashes. There we go. It's looking a little bit better. Again, here's where I would cheat. I'm going to go ahead and flatten this. I can cheat and use the mixer brush as it is and clean some things up. So I'm going to pick right here for the color, mixer brush, make it smaller, and I can smooth that out so it doesn't stand out as much as it did. Same over here. Maybe a little too much there. Just remember, if I wanted to do her jawline, for instance, I would go this way. I wouldn't try and do it this way because got to go with the flow. All right, it's looking good.
Yeah, I want to ask a stupid question. Maybe I missed something.
No,
but are you going to the color picker to select a color before you use the mixer brush?
Yes.
You can't sample with the brush itself.
Yes. If I'm doing the mixer brush, I would sample the color, because if I don't, I'm going to take bright red, for instance. If I come in here and start working on her cheek, you see the problem? It's great if you're.
No, I'm confused. Yeah, I'm confused.
If
okay.
If you're with Barnum and
brush,
Bailey, that
the
works.
mixer brush is like the mixer brush is like the regular brush where you need a color. It's not like I go and like the healing brush or something where I sample a part of theirs.
No, this is actually kind of a sample too. It does paint that, but that's why you need to have it. But you only have to have it close. It's not like, oh, I need this exact color right here. It's like, yeah, it's flesh color and it's about this. I don't want it that light. I don't want it that dark. Just pick something in the middle. So I would pick this and go, yeah, something about like that, because I would be doing this part and cleaning it up. Okay.
So Dave, on your little, to answer Ed's question as well, are you, that little tool that you have you programmed your eyedropper tool for one of those keys?
No. If I pick something over here and I need to get a color for it, I just tap on color and then tap where I want. And then it takes it here and say, okay. There isn't really a way to do that with a key. I mean, you could have a key that says, all right, I don't even know how you would assign a function key to one of these. So I leave it that so I have to do some things.
Okay, I understand. You have to set a color. Otherwise, it's going to go with whatever color is in the palette at that time.
Right, but it's pretty general. It's not like an actual paintbrush, dabbed in paint that's going to paint that color. I
get it.
Yeah. Okay. Now her hair still isn't the kind that, if it's got a lot of beautiful curls on it and everything. The curls, like this curl here, you can see part of the curl is all lit up. And if she had all kinds of curls here, I would take every place that the curl was lit up like that, and I would light it up more with the Dodge and Burn, because and it makes it stand out big time. It's important to do that. What you're doing is you're increasing the light on the hair, but not the rest of her body, and that's fine. It'll look okay, generally all the time. Not like one of those things that you look at and go, oh man, that's overkill. So speaking of Dodge and Burn, we'll do that. So I hit the Dodge and Burn action. So I've got Dodge, Burn, same layers, and it's already set for Dodge.
I got another question.
Sure.
Did you shoot that background, or is that photoshopped in?
Good question. I actually shot that. I don't know.
Whoa.
I don't know where. Oh, that blue is through her hair. Yeah. That's from the MagMod people. I have an AD200 back there, and it has a there's a lens thing that they sell that fits on the front of like an AD200 or a
I don't know what an AD200 is.
okay.
Is it a light?
It's just an overgrown version of a speed light. Do you know what a speed light is?
Oh, yep.
That's usually the thing that fits on the top of the camera that you never actually want to put on the top of the camera unless you're unfortunate enough to do a wedding. So it's
Okay, so you got
it's a small.
you got like the,
I can
I'm
actually
sorry.
bring. That's okay. I hate the digital thing that happens all the time. Let me bring it up and. Well, that's not there we go. No, I guess we're lucky we're working at all. I am up here in the forest and we're using an internet that comes off the mountain. So anyway, they have this thing that has a special lens that makes it that so you can actually have the light really close to something, and it does put the pattern on the wall. So you don't have to be like way far back and have it shine through something. So it has a special lens that works with it. And then there's these little metal plates with all kinds of shapes and things. You just change the metal plate to give you what shapes you want. I've used a circle, which makes it look like a spotlight. And you can have somebody like in a spotlight, or there's a line, and you can use that and put a line across their eyes or whatever. It's really kind of handy. I get a big kick out of it. And they have those on sale. Like everyone has everything right now. Well, the company's called MagMod, MAGMOD. All of my location stuff comes from there. Everything fits together with magnets. So you can very quickly put something together and break it back down to take it with you somewhere. And they have all these little kits for the smaller lights, and go look at their site. It's got some really cool stuff on it.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's cool. Okay.
They charge a pretty penny, but their stuff's going to last the rest of my life, which I know doesn't say much, but it's really, really built well. I haven't had any of it fail on me, and it works well. And they've played with the lights really well. They have one it's like a 2 foot, about a 2 foot dome. That's what I use when I go on location. And instead of using a grid for the filter on the front, if I want to do a gridded thing, they have a lens that fits on the front. It rolls up. It's a plastic lens. You unroll it. It magnetically fits on the front, and you now have the equivalent of a grid without something that's going to tear apart when you take it on location. So yeah, look that up. They've got some really good stuff.
Amazon has the MagMod kit. I put it in the chat.
Oh, awesome.
I
Awesome.
have no
Thank you,
idea.
Joy. Hey, if you need any discounts on anything, talk to Joy. She obviously is really good at it. I should have talked to her a long time ago. I need an R5. Can you find one for under $2,000?
I'll
That's
work on
awesome.
that.
That's awesome. Thank you. Okay, so we can do the dodge and burn with this. So we'll get back to that. But yeah, this background, I shot it, and then I just hung used basically a clip and threw a blue blue gel over it, and worked out just fine. She's supposed to look cold, so I thought blue would probably work. Okay, so I'm going to lighten up her arm a little down here, here. Here's where I can put light where there wasn't a lot, like down there. This is where it's like, well, where did you put a light down here? Because I see light here. Well, that's because I drew it in. That's what caused us the problems the other day. We were looking for light that wasn't there because I drew it in. Now, again, her eyes aren't closed, but I would highlight
I have
some
another
brightness
question.
right there.
How can you,
Go ahead.
the dodge tools that I have, they'll only brighten if it's already bright. You're not gonna brighten. I mean, that's what I'm used to. Is like
Well,
it brings out. Am I crazy, or well, can you just dodge something that's dark and it's gonna make it bright?
not something that's dark. And like if I tried to dodge right here, it just wouldn't look right. It would, because we can see where the light is and everything here. It's like, well, that's not right. It would start making it look like her arm really wasn't tilted like that, but it is. I would actually darken it here because that would then bring her arms in even more.
I'm not crazy.
No.
It has to have some kind of a light tone to it before you can.
Oh yeah. But let me point out that that doesn't mean you're not crazy. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
You're welcome. Okay. So yeah, I'm lightening up the fur in different places. Just keep in
That's
mind
because
that
you're treating dodge as like a highlighter. Is that correct? And then the burn is adding more depth or shadow.
dark, yeah, it makes it a lot darker.
Yeah.
Like right here, there's not a lot to see here, but it's there. So I can like go around the edges here and make this thing stand out a lot more. Okay, now let's look at that with and without the dodge. Almost looks like the thing she's holding is glowing in her face. And technically, the light that's here is really the light that's bouncing off of this up onto the bottom of her jaw. And all I did was enhance that. And this is brighter, so that all made sense. I made her jewelry stand out a little bit more. Now, if we do burn, we can actually darken around these edges here. And that makes it so it looks a lot more 3D. And this is where I would go along jaw lines or along hairlines. She doesn't have a lot of fluffy hair here, so it doesn't make as much sense. But any place that's dark, just make it a little darker. And here where there's a little shadowy, you can do a little bit more, much more in here. I don't think there's nothing lower than that. We can darken down here. You just have to remember you can dial it back by changing opacity, or you say add and look good, and you can back up on the history and get the same thing.
So if you were doing this with like a fitness model, you can bring out the abs or the muscle tone by adding dark into and then the light on either side of the dark channel. Is that right?
Absolutely. I mean, you do that a lot with somebody with abs. If they have abs, you can make it this so they went to the gym for another 6 months before the shoot. If you have somebody that comes in like me and says, paint on some abs, just try not to laugh too hard. because no, you can't put abs on a barrel. This doesn't work. But yes, that's what this would be for. Absolutely. Probably the most important place to try that. So I'm going to flatten this and stick my name on it, which is just 2 buttons. Sure makes it fast. This little AC-19, my typical edit was about 20 minutes. Now I think it's averaging more like 15 because my left hand is busy just making things happen. So I don't have to go over here and do stuff or go up here and go drop downs. I don't have to do any of that. Now, when I put my name in something, sometimes I don't want it to look quite, stand outish. So I'm picking the text. This is even if you just typed in something. Picking the text. Okay, there. I'm not seeing what I need to see because I think this, yeah, there we go. You all don't see it, but I got a control panel in my way here. Then I come up here and pick color. And it asks what kind of color I want. Well, here I can pick a blue or skin color or whatever. I usually pick a color. See, I could do yellow if I want. I usually pick a color out of the picture, and that way that doesn't stand out as much. And you can also change the opacity of it. So it's like, yeah, if I look hard enough, I can tell that I did that, or somebody else can tell I did it. Otherwise, it's not taking away from the art. So I'm going to flatten that now and save it. And we'll see what I'm going to do one other thing in Lightroom that I didn't do in the other one. There we go. There's the original. And there's the finished. You can see a big change in her face. See your face there between the two? Okay. Excuse me. I'm going to zoom into her eyes. Okay. By the way, you set, if you have an AC-19, one of these little, funny 9-button things, each program, you can program those buttons to be something different. So I've got the buttons reprogrammed in Lightroom where I've got 2 buttons that just take me back and forth through the film strip, and another button that flags it, and then a couple more buttons that put stars on them. So I can put the pictures up on the monitor on Lightroom, and I can sit back in my chair and flip through them all and mark them all without ever touching the computer, which is really, that speeds that up quite a bit too. Okay, so I'm going to change her eyes here. So I'm going to pick the brush. Again, I'm in Lightroom. I'm going to take the brush and increase the exposure a little bit, increase the clarity a little bit, and the saturation a little bit, which I can change as I go along. And I'm actually going to zoom in a little closer. There we go. I'm just painting a little part of her eye, not all of it, just the part that the light would be hitting. Now I can make it brighter. I can come up here and make it browner by changing the tint. I can change the clarity. I mean, nobody's going to look that close. They shouldn't anyway. But it changes the picture. Well, changes the picture. There we go. So our eyes look better than they did before because they look like they have more life in them. Remember I mentioned it to you in the class about the highlights in the eyes. You have to be there. This is where I could actually put more highlights in the eyes if I wanted to. If I come up here, gotta remember how to use the new one now. Do a new brush, and let's just do exposure, and I can make the eyes, the highlights in the eyes stand out more. So now I can make those like almost ungodly bright. We're done. Okay, it's another one of those things that changing the eyes just a little bit. I mean, even the highlights, they're as small as they are. If they weren't there, she would look dead. So you have to be careful with those things. And there's something I didn't tell you guys. I thought about it later and went, why didn't we talk about this? This is important. Remember I was telling you about reverse engineering lighting. Okay, you got to look at light and you got to figure out how is that lit. I didn't really emphasize the fact that the shadows are everything. You look at the shadow and it tells you precisely where the light was at, or lights. If there's more than one, there's probably more than one shadow. Like here, I'm sure you could probably put the light on her exactly where I had it without seeing the light, because there's a shadow and off of her feet and from her hand here, you can tell the light's like right up here. There's no question. So use the shadows to find the light. It's a dead giveaway. If I was to take the shadows out of this image, then she would look like she was in a huge room that it just wouldn't look right at all, because there'd be, at least if there wasn't a wall there, there'd be a shadow here. There'd have to be, especially since it's harsh lighting like this. Now, if I had a modifier on it, it would have been a softer shadow, but it would have still had a shadow. And finding that, using that shadow to find where the light is actually pretty important. And I cannot believe I didn't mention it to you guys. So, so keep that in mind when you're looking at things and reverse engineering it, going, how do they light that? Ask yourself, where's the dark? And the dark will tell you where the light is. That's why I couldn't tell on the guy who had 10 lights. There wasn't any shadows. I couldn't tell where he had any lights because he had 10 of them. So yeah, I felt better then. Not that I wanted to duplicate what he did. I was just curious, but there you go. I've got another one I could edit if you guys want me to. I picked this one mainly because there's just a lot of curve here. I'd probably do a little tiny bit of liquefy on this one. What do you think? Anybody got any questions or anything?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Any questions?
I'll hang around for it.
I'm sorry, what?
I said, I'll hang around for it. You're going to do it.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'll hang around for it. Okay. So on this one, let's bring up the shadows a little bit. Okay. See her hair coming up when I do that? Now this is where I could say, I want a brush. And I want that brush to do shadows. And I can take that brush, paint it over her hair. Oop. See, I can now control a little bit. But I can also control the exposure.
Oh, wow.
All right. So I can bring stuff out. I could also come down here and increase the sharpness, but I could also do what am I thinking here? Oh, saturation. I'm right on it. That's why I couldn't see it. See, I can make her hair a little redder. So did I tell you guys this story about when I went and visited her? We did a shoot over the weekend. So I slept on her couch, and the first time I went into the bathroom, I thought somebody had been murdered in there. Did I tell you guys that story?
Oh, no. Who is it? Like, can you tell us who it is?
It's Ellie. I was at Ellie's
Oh.
house and I spent the night, but the first time I went in the bathroom, there was it looked like blood splatters all over the walls and the bathtub everywhere. It's all red everywhere. And she had just colored her hair. and evidently the whole bathroom. It was hilarious. So anyway,
She's not a Phoenix area person.
no, she's out of Baghdad, Baghdad, Arizona, which is 2.5 hours outside of Phoenix.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah, I know
mining
where Baghdad-
town. Okay, so her shape is fine, but we're going to change it anyway for the sake of training. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to bring it into Photoshop.
I have a quick question. Would you save
Sure.
your dehaze for after Lightroom, Photoshop, Lightroom
Mhm.
at the end, or would you do dehaze in the first Lightroom
I would do it at
before
the
you
end.
the end? Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
The end changes the whole picture, or the dehaze changes the whole picture. So you do it all and go, okay, this is cool. And then you hit dehaze, and it depends on who you are and what you like, of course. And you go, whoa, okay, that changed everything and I like it. Or, whoa, that changed everything. I can't stand it. So, you may, some pictures I don't want it and some pictures I do want it. So,
You
so
do
there's
it
that.
on just low key photos, or when you shoot mostly low key, or do you do it? Would you do it on high key photos also?
I don't know. It'd be a good thing to try because you can always put it back.
Okay.
I can't, I don't know that I've ever done it in high key, but I don't do that many high keys.
I know.
I usually go
That's
the
why
opposite. I usually go the opposite direction. If it's high key, I go higher key. I'll make it even brighter. Okay, so I'm making a copy of this in case I screw it up. And I'm going to come over here to liquefy. And again, I'm not going to use the center of the brush. I'm going to use the outside of the brush. Just push it in just a hair. Push this in just a hair. There we go. She'll never know I did that.
still appreciate it.
This is how I would make her hair bigger. And I'm going to show you a trick here. Okay, I'm going to make her hair bigger and it's going to stretch her arm out funny. Okay, I'm going to do that on purpose because I want to show you how to fix that. And I always make hair bigger if there's any hair to make bigger. Nobody ever says, can you make my hair smaller? Never happened. Okay, so her arm's all screwed up there. So I'm going to, again, mask. And I'm going to mask with a black paintbrush. And I'm going to come over here where her hair is and mask back in the arm from the lower section.
Nice.
Okay, so even if there was a big pattern on the back wall, I would then bring the whole wall back, but not the hair. So now if we go back and forth, we can see her arm doesn't move. The hair did. And her hand is up here. So I'm just going to make it go away. All right. Now you notice even here, it changes a little bit where her bracelet is. So I can go in and paste that back. Now I'm going to tell you a trick that I did once, and this is really important. Joy, you may actually see this more. Well, anybody who does boudoir is going to see it. I had a model that had a C-section mark right here. I mean, it was a smiley face from Walmart. It was huge and it was thick and was bright red. And she had lingerie on like this. Actually, just for kicks, I'm gonna flatten this and I'm gonna show you because this is kind of important. Okay, so this is a flat image, and I am going to simulate a C-section scar. Okay, it wasn't quite that bright, but it was actually thicker than that. Okay, I'm going to make that go away without using any brushing or I'll show you that I sat back on this one and thought for a while because there was no way, this was so bright and so dark that there was no way I was going to be able to blend it in. So I sat back for about a half hour thinking, how am I going to do this? I know there's a way. Here's what I did. I'm going to make a copy of this. So I have two copies that are exactly the same. I'm going to take the top copy. I'm going to go to liquefy. And I'm going to pull her tummy down. Okay. Her tummy doesn't look that different. I'm pulling it in line with what's already there. Then I'm going to say, okay. And I'm going to do the mask. And I'm going to paint her panties back in.
You just did surgery.
I did. Ta-da. And now I would go in and
You
clean
need to
this
do
up.
doctor by
And she didn't even complain. And I didn't even have to give her anesthetic. That's great. So you can do that. You can actually pull things away from where they need to be and then turn around and paint things back in again to get exactly what you need. All right.
You know how much you pay a plastic surgeon for that one?
I know. Well,
You're in the wrong biz, Dave.
unfortunately, she still probably has that, but she sure loved that picture when I finished with it. So that, that shows you how to make that go away.
Nice
And again,
trick.
even that, like her belly button got a little longer. Okay, that doesn't mean it has to stay that way. So you can bring certain things back. Go back and forth. It looks like I missed part of that. Okay, so there's ways to fix stuff when it does things like that, which I thought was pretty cool. Okay, well worth the 5 minutes of thinking it over, because it would have taken me an hour to get rid of it any other way. Okay.
That's a really good tip. Thank you.
You're welcome. All I have to do is go back far enough. I can always take the original, I suppose. There we go. No. I wish I could go back all the way, actually. There. Okay, so her hair is bigger, and she's just a little bit thinner here. Every woman's body shape is different, and when you're shooting, this is actually the wrong way to shoot a female body. Straight on from the front, it's a bad idea. You're looking for an S curve. You're looking for all that curve. The bottom and the top from the side is an S, okay? Looking from the front, a lot of times this is pretty flat through here. It's supposed to be. I mean, they are who they are, right? And she's actually that way a lot of the times. Now she turns on sideways and it's a capital S. It's all there. I don't even know how she gets food from the top to the bottom because she's so thin looking from the side. So you have to analyze the body and figure out, all right, what's gonna enhance this just a little bit. I mean, sometimes it takes nothing. On the rare occasion, somebody's really super proud of their body and it's like, good, keep it that way. So, okay, so I'm going to, let's see, there's not a lot of stuff to fix on the face because there's no face there. Which is pretty clean as far as splotches and things. So I don't know that I even care about doing a frequency separation. So I will do dodge and burn, and we've got some curls in the hair, so I can show that. So I'm going to do the dodge and burn here. Okay, and I've got dodge chosen and everything. This, by the way, is at between 15 and 20%. That changes as far as the exposure. If I'm doing clothing or things in the background, I'll do that higher. I might go up to 50% just because I don't want to waste my time, and it doesn't make as much difference on boxes and furniture and whatever back here. It makes a huge difference on the body. So I keep it lower on the body because I'd rather go over it 2 or 3 times than to have to go over it once and go, oh, that's too bright. So I'm going to start with her hair. So just highlight in here a little. So I'm using a little brush because I don't want to do all of it. I just want to do the highlights. So if I look here, I've highlighted her hair. Again, it's subtle, but it's there. You do enough subtle things and you make a huge difference. So I'm going to lighten up her arms. Just remember, this is where you can add light more light that you couldn't do before. Because if you put more light on that, it would light up something else, you know, more than you'd want. And okay, see how the light's coming from, a lot of it's coming from this direction and some's coming from this direction. Not as much from back here, more from over here. But the light from over here is hitting here and reflecting onto her other boob here. So I'm going to actually add some light here. And I can get away with that because light is hitting that and coming over here. It's up to me how much light is reflecting off of there. And what that does is give more shape to that whole thing. And that's what that's all about, is shape. And if we weren't doing this for shape, we could be shooting guys. Guys, I tell people, I said, why don't you shoot more guys? I said, because they shoot like they dance. Badly, generally speaking. Okay, I love nylons when it comes to dodge and burn because it really looks great. And like Joy said, this is where you can give them abs, more abs than they have. They got to have abs in the first place. I'm going to go to burn. And burn is actually used more in abs than anything. So we can see, we can shape this a lot by changing that. She's got good abs, but they have a unique shape to them. She's got some muscles in places that are a little, they stand out a little more than for some other people. This is a shadowy part thing, so you can put a little more dark than normal. All right, you want to see me add a background on this one? You'll be shocked at how easy it is. I'm going to go to the stock images here. And there's a couple of places to get stock images. Pixabay is a good one. It's Pixbay. You can become a member. It's free. An awful lot of what I have came from sites like Pixabay. Let's see what we got here. This is too bright. Just for kicks, we'll put some color behind her. So I'm going to take this colored thing. I'm going to drop it right on top. And I'm going to zoom out. And I'm going to pull this out. Now I could stretch this, but then the round things aren't going to be round anymore. Don't want that. I'm going to put it right there and say, okay. Oh, I was in the middle of dodge and burn, wasn't I? Okay, so I'm going to flatten everything except what I just added there. Then I'm going to put the picture above the thing I just added. And I'm going to do the mask. If you haven't figured out, I use mask a lot. A lot of people do. Now with masking, normally you do a white or a black. I am actually going to do a gray. So I'm going to do a paintbrush, and I'm not going to do black. So I'm going to pick the black and I'm going to make it a light gray here. Now what that does is instead of going to the bottom image fully, it only goes a little bit to the bottom image. Actually, I think I'm supposed to be doing black. Oh yeah, I did do black. I changed it to a light gray. Okay, now I'm going to paint around her and watch what happens. I'm not sure I would normally use this background. I like it down here, but I don't like what it did up here. The cool part there is I can pick that background and do free transform, and I can move it around behind her now. I think I like that better down further from her. And I think I want to, I'm going to go to white, and I don't want it around this part of her. I just want it across here. Oops. Oh, it went to red for some reason. Okay, let's try white. Let's try being in the right box when I do this. Okay, there we go. Okay, I went too far. Need to just do it over here. All right, that's good. Some of this is the color from behind. That's how it was changing when I was moving over here. Now, what I can do is go with a little bit darker gray and not get as close to her, and it'll lighten up or darken up, depends, the things around her. Okay, now if some of it got on her, that's where we zoom in, go to white, and paint it off of her. Now, most of the time, people will take an image and they'll cut it and they'll paste it in to the background that they want. And that's okay. And I've been known to do that. But you know what? She looks like that's behind her. And in something like this, let me show you a little trick that's interesting. We're going to go back to a little bit lighter color. If I get some of this on her, it's not a big deal. Now it's like bokeh in front of her instead of behind her. So you can get, you know, some colors on her. And now she's like part of that. There's nothing wrong with that. It looks good. What do you all think?
Yeah, I like it.
Okay. And it's just a matter of painting, painting it on and then painting it off of her. Now, if I put a background in that's, well, let me change the background. So I'll show you. I'm going to throw the mask away. Delete it. And let's get rid of the
For all that
back.
work.
Yeah, that's okay. I've got a favorite one that I use all the time. This one. Be surprised how often I use that background. Probably 50% of the time. Now, 50% of the time, you'd think, well, I would notice this red background. Well, here's the cool part about that. If I want it to be a different color, I can come up here to adjustments while I'm on this background. And I can say, well, I want to do saturation and hue. And this right here, by the way, is very important. This is a check. This is a thing that says only do what I'm about to do to the next layer down. If I don't check that box, it's going to do it to her picture too. And I don't want that. I only want it to this red. I can now change that color to any color I want. So if it's skin tone color, I want brown instead of red, or, you know, it's blue. I can do any color I want. And there's that. Now I'm going to flatten this between the adjustment and the background. I'll flatten that up and then show you something else I do to it. I can go to, oh man, I hope okay. I forgot whether I checked that thing. I'm going, oh, she's going to be brown too. I'm going to now go to the filters, go to Gaussian blur, and I can change this so it's not as detailed. So it's just kind of a background. Now I'm going to take her and put her above the picture, put a mask in, and I'm going to paint with a light gray I'm going to paint around her. Now this, the reason I changed and the reason I'm doing it again is because I want you to see that some of the color from the background is getting on her, and it's just fine. See, she's a little bit red here. Does not matter, because if this was real and she was standing in front of that wall and that light was like that, it would probably reflect some of that color onto her. And I'm good with that. That immediately makes it look like she belongs there. And that's the idea with all of these, whenever you're doing this kind of thing, is to make it look like it's real, right? Nobody does this going, oh, everybody's going to know this is fake. And again, we can go even a little darker. I'll probably get the idea across better if I go darker. I'm edging her. I'm not painting over her, of course, but I'm painting close enough to her that you can't see like a little dark gap or anything. But I am not going to clean up her skin because I don't need to. That color is reflecting off of her like it's supposed to. If I cut her out and pasted her in, it would look terrible, because, well, she'd be nice and pasty white next to this dark background, and there wouldn't be any connection between the two. And doing it this way, there's all the connection in the world. Now this is going to sound complicated, and I even have trouble with it every time I do it. But if she was a superhero and she's walking away from an explosion and there's all the flames and all that stuff in the background, and you want some of that to reflect off of her, but you don't, I mean, if you did this to it, she'd have reds and oranges and all kinds of colors on her skin. You don't want that at all. So what you can do in a case like that is, if you've got the picture in the background, it's fire, flames everywhere, you can edit that picture. There's nothing that says you can't change that background picture. And you can go into that picture in any place that is on her skin. You go into that picture and you paint it with orange or some combination of average of all the colors that are behind her. So if you paint that orange, so now she's got the flames behind her and she's got this orange glow on her skin that reflects the fire behind her. And it's tricky because you kind of have to go back and forth to paint on that. Now you look at the original background and it's got, there's fire with these orange lines in it that don't make any sense. It doesn't matter because it's just for this picture. And it really works. It works really well. If you cut her out and pasted her in, she would not look like she's around fire at all. So, I really like this way of doing things. And you can probably look at it and go, yeah, that looks like something Dave would do, because that's how I do it every time. Now, this funny stuff that you see at the top and bottom, that's because I didn't make the picture big enough. See, the picture's not big enough, or it's because I blurred it. So all I have to do is make it a little bit bigger, and it takes that stuff out of the bottom and top. There we go. So there you have it.
Is that the same way that you did the purple background behind the girl that we couldn't get the lighting to replicate the lighting?
Yes. Yeah.
You added that purple. Yeah. Okay.
I added a purple background with the little slashed lights in it. I have an awful lot of those. And it can be very handy. Like this. You can put that in it, and if they're leaning or look like they're running in a direction or something, you can just put all kinds of motion in it by just adding a background that looks like it's adding to the motion. But see the floor that I add to some. Do you want to see me add a floor to one? It's super easy. Again, it's a piece of cake. Let's do it to the one with her dancing around. That works. That works perfectly. Okay. So we're going to edit this. Well, kind of perfect. It's obvious that there's an edge to here, and the floor usually just goes off into oblivion. But we're going to edit this, and we're going to toss a floor in there. Make it a little bit. There we go. This floor. So I'm going to put that floor in there. Make the floor make it to both sides. Then I'm going to hold the shift key down and I'm going to make the floor at the angle to match the angle that she is to that floor. Look about right. We'll find out. A little bit higher. Okay. So now we've got the floor. I don't know what that is. What's that? It's weird. Background. Okay. Well, that's her. I don't know what this middle one is. I'm taking it out. Okay. So we got the floor and we got her. I'm going to put her above the floor. Do the mask. Again, going to do a light gray. And I'm going to paint the floor. Okay. Picture doesn't go all the way. So that's what the little white things are for. So we're going to let it just fade into the side of the wall like that. There we go. And of course, we got some on her feet, right? I can then turn around with white and we can paint on her feet and it takes the reflection off or takes the floor off of her feet. I've actually had some things that were shiny, like guitars and stuff sitting on the floor and a little bit of the floor reflecting off the guitar. Looked like the guitar was reflecting it. It was really pretty awesome. Now what I can also do here is, the floor is just for mood. I mean, nobody's gonna, oh yeah, I like the floor. They're not looking, they shouldn't be looking at the floor. If they're looking at the floor, you did it wrong. I'm gonna make sure that all of the floor is painted well here. By the way, you can tell by hitting the slash key just above the return key, that tells you, you can toggle on and off, tells you where you painted. So if you're doing something that you can barely tell if you painted it or not, you can do that and it shows you where you painted. Now I'm going to do a little bit darker. I'm not going to get close to her. I'm going to just do like the front piece here. Now I'm going to go completely black and we'll do some more of the front piece. Okay. Now I didn't go next to her. That's probably too dark. Didn't go close to her, so I don't have to fix anything. I could actually go all the way across here and then bring her feet back and she'd be on this darker floor. That's probably more than I would want to do. So maybe not black, but closer. There we go. That's better. Now, if you look at a lot of the work that I do, you'll notice that when it gets close to the subject, it gets a lot lighter. And my excuse for that, because I'm an artist, so I can come up with excuses like that, is that it's not about the floor. It's about the model, and I want the model to stand out against that floor. So if I make the floor or a background or something like that fade out around the model, it's because the model is the important thing I want you to look at here, not the stuff around them. So so that's how that works.
You have to paint did you have to paint the shadow back in? I must have missed something. Maybe I blinked. The shadow's on the floor. Did you paint that back in?
I didn't have to because I was only painting with gray. By painting with gray, it's not completely painting over what's there, which is also, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because it's also a nice feature. If I mean, let's do it again. I will take this out. So now she's just like that, right? Now I'm going to paint. If I painted with black here, then yes, it's going to take out her shadow completely. And we wouldn't want that. We wouldn't want that. So we do, when we do it with gray, wow, we weren't even fully black on that one. If we do it with gray, her shadow stays. It stays on the floor.
Nice.
Okay, because we're not painting directly, we're not painting it out of the picture. So that is a huge advantage. You don't have to go back and put a shadow back in because the shadow is still there. And even if you did decide you wanted to, you could do dodge and burn a little bit and probably darken that up a little bit if you wanted to. And again, it doesn't go all the way up. So we've got the funny thing we need to get rid of up here. But there you go. Even that looks kind of cool.
Yeah.
You can go way off the edge around here and say, I'm an artist. Get out of my face. So it works out well. Works for my personality anyway.
I'm
Yes,
convinced.
there is.
Okay. So how we doing? Been a couple hours. Did you
Yeah,
did you pick
very
up
nice.
did you pick up anything?
Lots.
Now, the trick there now is to go practice it all. And I will put this, I'll probably put this on Vimeo. So it's not out there on YouTube, or it's difficult to, well, I guess I could password it on YouTube. We'll see. It may be a few days before I can get it out there, because from
What
up
about on
here,
your? What about it? Is it going to be posted on your website?
well, I'll send you guys a link. I don't
Okay.
want anybody else to see it. It's just for you guys. It may be a few days before I get it up, because from up here, 2 hours worth of video would probably take a day to get the thing up there. Once I get back in the valley, it'll take 15 minutes. So let's say Saturday, it'll probably be available to look at again. Does that sound okay with everybody? I
It's
mean,
fine with me.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And one thing, Dave, you know that we talked about lighting on Saturday, your simplicity. I mean, even what you did here was pretty simple. I mean, not to make it sound like it's
No,
easy, but the simplicity of the way in which you look at it, approach it, I think really, demystifies a lot of things, and it's really looking at your light and how you want it to perform.
no, yeah. Well, I'm glad you got that out of it, because I'm a firm believer in nothing is as complicated as it looks, and we all tend to make it even more complicated by overthinking it. And it's like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. And it's I have seen so much art over my lifetime that I loved, and I thought to myself, there's no way in hell I would ever be able to do anything like that, especially like bodyscapes. And I'm doing it now. I mean, not all of it. There's a lot of art out there I'm not doing, of course, anywhere close, but I'm doing my art, and it wasn't anywhere near as complicated. It took a lot of time, took more time because I didn't have anybody telling me it wasn't complicated, and that here's the path you need to follow to get there. So I went in an awful lot of directions I didn't need to go in. But yeah, it's keep it simple. Now you know how to make a smiley face go away off of the belly. if nothing else. So I keep that. I mean, that could be anything that you need to change. If somebody says, I've always hated that, I've always hated that tattoo. Okay, well, you may be able to just move it out of the way and then bring other skin in place of it, and ta-da, there you go. If it's a full sleeve, forget it. That's not going to happen. But there you go.
Well, the scar piece was great because I had to with that, and I spent a lot of time trying to do cloning and get into that area. But what you did took, 3 seconds total, and it was perfect. So that just saved an entire couple, at least 30 minutes for me. So I appreciate that.
Good. Well, it's there's a lot of sit back and think about the tools you have and go, okay, do I hit this one with a shovel or the pickaxe? And one of them is going to be easier than the other one, and that's all you got to do. So, and I'm a really good guy when it comes to I'm going to find the easy way to do it. I don't want to do it the hard way. So any other questions you can think of?
No,
Okay, I won't be
thank
here.
you.
2 in the-
very much.
Oh, yeah,
I won't be here. at
really
2 in the
appreciate the
morning.
time.
Yeah. Oh, you're quite welcome. It was fun. All right, guys. Well, you know where I'm at if you have any other questions.
That was great. Thank you so much. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to all.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Have fun. Looking forward to seeing your work.
Thank you, Dave.
Bye.
Bye-bye.